Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Getting back to work on the Cobra in this video. Last video I went over most of the parts that I'd received in for all the work I need to do on the engine. And now it is time to get back to starting to tear things apart. So what I'm going to do is get the camera turned around, and I need to start getting the rest of the items off the front of the engine. So it's going to be removing the alternator, belt, water pump, and then the front cover after removing the main pulley. So quite a bit of work still to do to get to the point where I can get the front cover off. Big thing is I need to get that cover off to make sure that the new one that I bought will be usable on the engine before I do anything else. So that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and get the camera turned around and get started on work. All right, so as I was saying, yeah, I need to go ahead and get all the accessories removed. Well, this, just the alternator, and then that way I can get the water pump and the front pulley off. One thing I do want to mention as well, last video when I was going over all the parts, I did mention I may order a new oil pan and new front seal. And I did go ahead and do that. I've received, it's a Ford OEM replacement front seal. And as far as the oil pan goes, I ordered a zinc coated stock style oil pan. So didn't really think I needed anything special or like deep sump or anything like that for my application. And I like the way the zinc looks, and it seems to hold up better than the chrome or anything else. So that is on the way, due in a couple of days. So that is a plus. But what I'm going to do next is I need to get underneath, because this has that Jones Racing accessory setup. As you can see there, there's a turnbuckle underneath that I need to loosen up to get the slack taken out of the alternator, get the belt removed, and then I can start pulling parts off of the engine. All right, back underneath the car. Went ahead and loosened the top bolt for the alternator up here, so it's got room to pivot. And then I went ahead and took all the slack out of the turnbuckle here. So now I just need to remove this bolt, and then you've got the stack of spacers that are probably going to come out with it. And then once this turnbuckle is removed, I can go ahead and take the belt off. So working on that, and once the belt is off, then I can go ahead and get to work on the water pump and main pulley. All right, quick update. As you can see, the belt is off. To do that, I actually had to remove the top bolt of the alternator. So I was able to pivot the alternator just enough to get the belt to come over here, just because with that turnbuckle, limited amount of movement in the mount. So, but anyway, I was able to get the belt off, and then I started the wonderful process of taking off the drive system for this Jones Racing setup, which you can see all the bits and pieces here. You have, the front bolt with all those spacers, then the actual drive pulley with the spacer behind it, that then goes on this hub, which is held on by those 4 bolts. So now that all that is off, I am to the point where I have the damper and the main damper bolt in the end to remove, and then I can go ahead and get the damper off of the engine. All right, back up top, and what I'm gonna do first before I mess with the main balancer is I'm gonna remove the water pump. So as you can see, I went ahead and removed the hose from the water pump. So now it's a matter of just removing these 3/8 ARP bolts. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab a ratchet, get all the bolts out, and get the water pump off the front cover. All right, and as you can see, water pump is now removed. That was pretty straightforward, all the bolts, and then give it a quick little smack, and it came right off. I also, while I was cleaning up the mess, went underneath and removed the front 4 oil pan bolts, because those do go into the timing cover. As long as you have those out, you can remove the timing cover without dropping the oil pan. So those have now been removed. I also, if you see that bolt right there, that is what holds on the bracket for the clutch cable, as well as the other bracket for the underwiring harness that you can see dangling there. Remove that bolt, so that's out of the way, because that is, so those are out of the way, because that is part of the timing cover as well. The one on the passenger side where that wiring harness mounts is actually part of the block, so that's not a problem. It's just the driver's side. So those, the bottom bolts are out, and that's loose. So all it really is left to get the cover off is to remove the damper and bolts, and then the bolts for the cover. Now, as you can see here, I do have the new cover that I lined up kind of above it, just to try and get an eye on things and see what I'm up against here. As you can see, you look at the mount pattern for the water pump, it does match the standard rotation that I currently have, so that is right. Obviously, I have a fuel pump accommodation on this new cover. Stock one does not have that, so what I will likely do is use the block-off plate, and then one of the bolts for the block-off plate is what I'll have to mount those two brackets to that were mounted down there before. So I think that's going to be doable. The only thing of concern is this cover has an accommodation for a crank trigger sensor instead of a timing pointer. I need to have a timing pointer. I have this aftermarket one right there, but I've been thinking about getting rid of that because I really don't need an adjustable timing pointer. I was kind of thinking of just getting a stock one and putting a stock one on there, but I'm likely gonna have to cut that off of the cover to have room for the timing pointer. So that is something that I'm not thrilled about, but again, this was the only part I could find that was a new replacement for the existing timing cover. So we'll see what happens with that. More than I'm thinking about it and looking at it, I'm wondering if my coolant leak issue had to do with these holes here. There's two holes. It's probably easier to show them on this one. Right there, and same thing on the other side. They're inboard holes. They're tapped, but they're not used for mounting the water pump, but they do go all the way through the cover, at least on the aftermarket one. Let me show you here. You can see it in the valley there on that side and on that side. And those are the areas, those valleys there, where my stock one keeps filling up with coolant. So I'm wondering if it really is a timing cover problem at all, or if it was just the gasket wasn't sealing those, and if I filled those up, I'd have no problem. What I might end up doing is pull off my timing cover, see how it looks, and if I don't see pitting or anything like that, I might just send this back and continue on with my timing cover. So need to get timing cover off and then make that decision. All right, just crawled under the car and confirmed the bolt is a 15/16 for the damper. So I'm gonna go ahead, grab my impact wrench, get my compressor going and crawl under there, get the bolt out, and then grab a puller. For the balancer, you can use you need to use one that's got like bolts basically, where it's got like the flat bar, and then you thread the couple bolts into the holes in the damper, and then you can pry it out. So basically what I'll be doing is loosen up the main bolts, leave it in like 4 or 5 threads or so I have something to pry against, and then I'll thread the puller into the damper and start pulling it out. Now I did set it I have it set where the top dead center mark is lined up with the pointer currently, just so I try and keep the orientation correct. Although I can't remember off the top of my head when I have to redo the timing chain, if I'm gonna have to move it anyway. I just top of my head can't remember. But anyway, I'm gonna get in there, get this thing loosened and removed so I can go ahead and pull the cover off. All right, quick update. Use the impact down there. Got the bolt loosened up and then put it back in, like I said, 3 or 4 turns. Used a puller with 2 bolts and was able to get this removed pretty much to the point where it bottomed out on the bolts again. It wouldn't pull any further, and you can see it's almost all the way out. So I'm gonna go grab a ratchet and remove the bolt, and then this should come out. I shouldn't need to do anything else. I did double check and it is still lined up, with the pointer. Again, once I pull the timing cover off, I'll then know if I have to move anything to put the new timing chain set on. Like I said, I just can't remember anymore. So I'm gonna go ahead, grab the ratchet and remove the bolt the rest of the way, and I should be able to get the balancer off. All right, here you can see puller is out. There's the bolt and washer, puller, and then the actual tool that I used. And these are 3/16 is the thread you need for the bolts to pull. So that is what you're gonna need to get the damper out. Like I said, it had like 4 turns or so on the bolt, and once I removed the tool, the bolt was still hand loose. I loosened that and then just grabbed the damper, gave it a couple like little pulls, shimmied it a little bit, and it came right off. So that is out. So next is going to be removing the cover. As you can see, all the rust from the coolant leaking, that also is what is leading me to believe that it was just a bad seal. Something just didn't set right, because it looks like it was leaking out, from between the water pump and the timing cover as well. All right, back under the car. I did go up top already and remove the 2 top timing cover bolts using a 3/8 wrench. And now I'm going to go ahead and remove the bottom 4 that are on each side. I also did confirm that based on where the keyway is on the crank, that is where the lower timing gear will point up where the dot is to match everything up to remove the timing or set the timing chain properly. So that is the right orientation for the crank as well at top dead center. All right, update time. The 2 lower bolts on this side were my ARP bolts. The last one that was in there was for the custom adjustable timing pointer. It was a hex head that you can see there. Got that out. And then what I did end up having to do, I apologize, the weather warning siren is tested every Saturday at this time, and it is going off right now. But anyway, I had to loosen all of the oil pan bolts down each side so I could pry it down a little bit to get clearance, and then the timing cover came off. If you'll be able to see, there's a lot of silicone in the front of it from whoever put this together last time. So that was holding it in place. So good news is I was afraid it was going to screw up my timing because I forgot from last time I had this on, but this does have a locator in it, so it will stay pretty tight in the timing cover on the one, and then the other is just a pivot for clearance to the damper, so I should be pretty good. Not having to really worry about resetting my top dead center mark. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the cover off, but as you can see, it does look like this already has an upgraded timing chain in it, so that is good news, but I did buy a new one anyway, so I will most likely be replacing it. All right, here we are in front of the engine underneath. It is not a dual roller, it's a just single gear set. I don't see any markings on it as to what the manufacturer is, so I have no idea what this is. But yeah, I've got a nice Melling dual roller set that's going to go in and replace this. So yeah, I'll just go from there and use my new parts that I bought. All right, well, that being said, I think that is where I'm going to end this one. After being able to inspect everything, I do believe I'll be able to reuse my timing cover. I'm pretty sure that the leak issue was, as I've stated, those 2 small holes that do actually lead into that valley. I don't think the gaskets that were around those holes were properly sealed, so I do believe that was allowing some coolant to seep through and come out those holes, and that was what was filling those little pockets per se. So yeah, versus, trying to install that new one, which is not right for this motor. It would need a lot of, customization. It just doesn't make sense. So I'll be cleaning up my old timing cover, reusing it. So I'll have to go ahead and order some gaskets for that. But I will be putting in, new timing chain, and then I do have new oil pan and all that fun stuff to go on. So get this thing all sealed back up, hopefully, and no more leaks in the future. So if you like what you're seeing, you want to follow along, please hit like. Please hit subscribe. Please hit the notification bell. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below. I do review them. I will reply. I do have a second YouTube channel devoted to firearms. If that's something that interests you, there is a link in the description of this video. Please check it out. I also have a Rumble page that is also devoted to firearms. If you are on Rumble, I'd appreciate it if you go on there and start following my page. That being said, thank you very much for watching, and have a great day.